Colonel Reserve Jonathan Conricus is joining us right now live as this is happening, international spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces. Jonathan Conricus joining us now. Thank you so much, sir. We're watching these hostages getting out of the vans and being transferred. Can you tell us more about this process and what you know?
Yes, hi, and thank you for having me. I hate to interrupt the general, but we are seeing positive images for the fifth day now. Israeli women and children, after 53 days of brutal Hamas captivity, are being returned home. Today, we're talking about 10 Israeli nationals and 2 foreign nationals that are being returned, all of them women, no men. As you mentioned before, of the previous 4 groups of Israelis that have been released, 51 in number, not including those of today, we have torn families, women and children that have been returned, fathers who are still in Hamas captivity.
So, Jonathan, we note that the youngest of the hostages that were released today was 17 years old. A lot of the hostages are elderly folks. I believe the mother of one of the hostages, the young hostage, was released today as well. But there are so many. If you say that 51 released prior to this, that's a total of 63. But Hamas was holding 239. So that still leaves more than 150 hostages in Hamas captivity. And one of the big questions is, Hamas seems to be playing this idea of a ceasefire or pause in military operations, however you want to characterize that, for all it's worth here. And if you've still got 150 people left and you're releasing them at a rate of 10 a day, that's another 2 weeks at least that they could try to hold off military operations by the IDF in Gaza. Do you expect that that is the way that it's going to go in the days ahead?
You are very correct in your analysis, I think. And what we're looking at, this current framework has a 10-day limit to it. So we understand what Hamas is doing. If Hamas would be able to do what they wanted, and I'm sure that they would release only 1 hostage every day. Part of the negotiations that went on, a lot of negotiations with very important American input by the president himself and, of course, his team. We put it at a minimum of at least 10 live hostages per day in order to have another day of pause in our activities. But there's a cap of 10 days for the current framework. And if we want to expand that, then that has to be renegotiated and voted on again by the Israeli War Cabinet. So what we're doing in the IDF is, of course, facilitating these very important moments. Each and every Israeli that is brought home to safety and to be reunified with their family is a beautiful thing, the best thing I've seen in the last 53 days. But we are preparing for the future of operations. Plans are already approved and ready to be executed to continue to fight and to eradicate Hamas wherever Hamas is, in and outside of the Gaza Strip.
Lieutenant Colonel, we also have up right now live on our screen, we've gone from where the hostages were being turned over to Israeli custody to now the Ofer prison in the West Bank, where we know the Palestinian prisoners have been detained by the Israelis. Can you talk a little bit more about this process and the exchange of the hostages and the prisoners and what we will see in the coming minutes and hours, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Israel has been forced, as part of the negotiations, to free convicted felons, prisoners, some of them with blood on their hands, some of them who did attacks against Israeli military personnel or against civilians. Up until now, we've been talking about women and minors only. Hamas wanted that kind of alleged parity between our women and children that were taken from their homes on the 7th of October and Palestinian women and minors who are offenders, who are now in prison after a legal process, after they either tried to stab soldiers or civilians or threw rocks or were otherwise part of illegal activity against Israelis. So what we're going to see is the release of today's batch of Palestinians. They will be returned to Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, where they come from. They are not from Gaza. And Hamas is, of course, claiming a victory. If you see the victory parades that they're doing in various Palestinian cities, you'll see very few Palestinian flags, lots of Hamas flags. And that is a worrying sign of Hamas growing and strengthening in Judea and Samaria at the expense of the Palestinian Authority.
Lieutenant Colonel, as we pointed out, we're looking at pictures of the 10 Israeli hostages who were released today. In addition, as you pointed out, there are 2 foreign nationals. Do we know which country they are from, or countries?
Yes, as I understand now, this is still unconfirmed, but according to the pictures and the preliminary information, and I want to be cautious, these are caregivers that who lived together with elderly people, Israelis, elderly Israelis, and they are from various countries. I'm afraid they are not American. If that, I suppose that is part of the question. But I understand that there are foreign caregivers who are also taken, held in captivity without even being part of any conflict or anything. They were just taken, and they are now being returned. I'm of course happy for them and for their families, and I'm very happy for Israeli women who are now being brought back to safety in Israel.
Lieutenant Colonel Conricus, again, thank you so much for your time and joining.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.